Hey guys, it's Luke from Mix It Made Simple, and today I'm going to be talking about sends and returns, what they are, why we should use them, and I'm going to show you multiple ways that we can use them, multiple creative ways that can bring your track to another level. But before we get to that, if you're an EDM producer and you're wanting to get really good at mixing and mastering as fast as possible, you want to make your own tracks sound professional, then go ahead and look in the description below and book a Zoom call with me. We'll discuss getting you enrolled in my course, Mix Immersions. It's a really immersive course. I have a private Discord group where I do weekly Q&A sessions. So there's like a, kind of like a mentorship that goes along with this. And really it's my goal to get you to a professional level as fast as possible. So go ahead, look in the description below and look out for other free stuff down there as well. So let's talk about sends and returns. So in Ableton, the way we have this set up is that we've got the return tracks down here, and then we've got the sends, which basically means that we each one of these correlates. So like there's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and so this one correlates with A, this one with B, and so on. And so the first reason that we use these is because it saves on CPU usage. And so, when you're a beginner producer and your project might not have a lot going on, but as you get more advanced, you tend to start adding a lot more layers. And so, you might end up having like 50 tracks, or, there's some producers that have like 100 tracks going on there. And so what happens is if you have a reverb on every single channel, it can start to weigh on your CPU. And if you don't have a really fast computer, especially, your CPU usage goes up, you start to get that crackling sound, and it interrupts your workflow and you're just not able to produce well. So that's the number one reason. Number two is that it creates a cohesiveness in your mix. And so if I have a reverb, for example, I've got this long verb. I typically have like a 4-second reverb that I'll have set up. And if I have my tracks, if I send, stuff like different sounds just to this one reverb, and that's the wrong one. If I have it set up like this, it creates like an atmosphere and a cohesiveness to your track. And so, like if you had like a different reverb on every single track and different decay times and all this stuff, then it might just sound kind of weird. And so that's one way. It's a really great way to have some cohesiveness and add some atmosphere. Okay. And so, the other reason, and now I'm going to actually show you how you can use, sends and returns, is that there's a parallel processing aspect to this. So it's automatically basically parallel processing. And what that means is basically, I'll show you. So if I have this reverb on the vocal, and let's say that like this is the vocal and I've got this reverb here, and this vocal is already mixed. It's just a sample I got off of Splice. And so if I turn the reverb on and I've got the 3-second decay time here, let's go to 4. If I start bringing up the dry wet, technically when you get to like 50% or whatever, that's parallel processing, but then you'll hear the difference here. I want to show you the difference. We're applying the reverb directly on the signal, which is a little different than how the send and return track works. So I'm just going to raise this up and then just listen to what it sounds like.
Complicated. I shouldn't ever have to feel this way, but every time I try to up and walk away,
So you hear how when it's 100% wet, it's like completely washed out and sounds weird, which we would never do that. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't ever add a reverb to a vocal like this, but go ahead and now listen to the difference. If I turn this off and send it to this, I've got a setup right here. This, the second one is my setup for my reverb. So let's go ahead and send it to this one.
Complicated. I shouldn't ever have to feel this way, but every time I try to up and walk away.
Oh, wait, let me turn this compressor off.
Complicated. I shouldn't ever have to feel this way, but every time I try to up and walk.
So you can hear a difference there, right? So even when this is pushed up all the way, it's still not completely washing out the vocal, and because you're making a parallel type of vocal basically. And so So technically when you send the vocal signal off here, it gets routed through the master, and that's what you're hearing. And yeah, and so basically what we can do is we can get really creative with this, and we can set up different sends and returns. I typically, I think you can set up to like 16 of them. I don't ever go that far because then it's just getting really complicated and like kind of hard to keep track of. But I'll typically have like between like 5 and 7 or so. I'm going to show you how I use them. And so this first one, we got the reverb, right? And so if you just want to add to reverb, well, maybe you wanted to do more than just a reverb. So I got a reverb here. Maybe I wanted to add a little bit of saturation. And so I can play the vocal.
Complicated. I shouldn't ever have to feel this way, but every time I try to up and walk away, you come around and
So that's
start
kind of
love me better.
saturating the reverb, and it's just creating a nice little effect. And now here's a really cool trick that we can do, and this is a little bit more advanced, but I really like doing this, and I'm going to show you 2 different ways of doing this that's really cool. So if I have this sidechain compressor, we have a compressor here. I turn the sidechain on, and then I'm actually going to sidechain it to the vocal. And now the way this works is if the lower the threshold goes, the more dry the signal is going to be. And then when it releases, when like the vocal stops, you're going to hear the reverb come back in. And so listen right here, or listen to the whole thing as I lower the threshold with this vocal on right here. Okay, go ahead and take a listen. I'm going to turn this decapitator off. I just wanted to demonstrate that, but I'm going to leave it off for now.
Complicated. I shouldn't ever have to feel this way, but every time I try to up and walk away.
You see how like the lower the threshold go, the more dry the reverb sounds, but you can still hear there's a reverb kind of popping in and out. Well, watch what happens right here when it cuts off, how the reverb kind of comes back in. And you can add like a fast release, have it really kind of come back. So check this out. Oops, right here.
Complicated. I shouldn't ever. Complicated. I shouldn't ever have to feel this way, but
so you can hear that it's coming back in, right? And it's like a really, really cool effect. And it's a way to kind of keep the vocal up front, but still have the effect of the reverb. And you can do this to anything. You can do it to a lead sound. You can do it to a lot of different stuff, but I like to do it to a vocal. And here's where I especially like doing it to a vocal. So I'm just going to turn this off just so you can really hear this. Go down to this ping pong delay, and I've got Echo Boy, and I'll go ahead and I've got it on quarter notes, and I've got it on a ping pong delay. So let's go ahead and turn this off, and I'm going to raise up. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the 5th one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So right here, I'm going to raise this up and then listen to what the ping pong delay sounds like without the compressor on.
complicated. I shouldn't ever have to feel this way, but every time I try to up and walk away, you come around and start to love.
So you probably wouldn't want that, right? You're like, it's like too much echo or delay, and it's like interfering with the vocal, and it sounds weird. But a lot of times we'll automate a delay, and get really particularly, and I'm not against doing that, but sometimes you just want to like get a nice vocal effect, a nice delay sound, and like kind of not worry about it. And so what you can do, I've been doing this more lately, it sounds really cool. I'm going to do the same thing, the side chain, and now watch what happens with that same amount applied, but then the threshold lowered. So check this out.
Complicated. I shouldn't ever have to feel this way, but every time I try to up and walk away.
And that might be too much. Let's go ahead and lower it a little bit. And then we can bring the threshold up and then take a listen to this.
Complicated. I shouldn't ever have to feel this way, but every time I try to up and walk away, you come around and start to love me better.
Take a little bit of slower release.
Complicated. I shouldn't.
And we can even kind of mess. So I've got 100% wet, but I can lower the feedback so it's not too aggressive.
Complicated. I shouldn't ever have to feel this way, but every time I try.
Now listen when I turn the compressor off.
Complicated. I shouldn't ever have to feel this way, but every time I try to up and walk away. away.
You see how that does that? So
Complicated.
it's just a really great way to kind of keep that delay in check and only have it come in during certain parts, like when the vocal drops out, the threshold or the compressor's released, and then it kind of pops back in. And you can have this kind of like more subtle in the background, but it's still there, and it really creates this nice, just really cool effect, okay? So that's one thing I've been kind of exploring more recently. And the great thing about this is I encourage you to do this with sends and returns and just explore different kind of effects like that, okay? You can have all sorts of different cool sounds. One cool thing you do, this is a really cool effect, is it on the drums. I have it set up right here. So if I loop like, where's my little looper tool? Okay, if I loop, I'll just loop a little section here. Watch what happens if I bring up, and I don't have the kick drum playing. I usually route my kick drum just straight to the master. And so, but if I've got this reverb, it's like a 10-second decay, okay? It's really, really a lot of reverb, but watch what I can do with this, okay? So this is I'm controlling it right here. Okay, so that's like kind of crazy, right? But one thing you can do, and I kind of did this over here, but I'm going to go ahead and switch it over here. So you can go like this and have like this cool build up, but then you can also, because of the magic of automation, is you can have this return tag just turn off. Because if we didn't do this, then it might not have the same effect, but watch. So basically, I'm going to play these drums and watch how it builds up, and then it builds this tension and then goes back to normal right here. Okay. Check this out. You see that? And so now if I play the whole track, I'm not sure where it's at in the track. Let's go ahead and listen. So it kind of builds that tension, and it's just a cool little trick that you can do. And then, of course, you want to remember that if you're going to use that again, to go ahead and turn that back on. And so that's a little, cool little trick we can use with a long reverb time. And then one more thing I want to show, because we're using sends and returns our parallel processing, well, you can set up a little parallel compression. And so I've got it labeled New York. I don't typically like to use this on for a lot of parallel compression, but it's set up in case I just want to send something off to kind of get that, thicken it up a little bit, add that nice parallel compression to it. Because if you use something like an Ableton effect rack, you can kind of get more, you can be more, it's more flexible doing that way. But this is still a way you can do this. So I've got a glue compressor. And remember, when we're doing parallel compression, it's typically you want to have a really fast attack time because you're going to squash out those transients. Because the whole point of parallel compression is to have your uncompressed signal keeping the transients, and then kind of adding in the really compressed signal, and it's kind of you get the best of both worlds, basically, like a really compressed sound with the uncompressed sound. And so I'll take the same thing, these drums, and I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of this. I'll just loop it right here. Right here, okay. So go ahead and you can listen to the drums, right? And I've got some parallel compression. I've already got it set up right here, right? So I'm going to turn this off. And so now, watch what happens to this compressor when I send this whole drum group to the glue compressor here. And just like that, we've got some parallel compression. It's a really quick way you can do it. You have to be careful though, because obviously when I was doing that, it was getting louder, and we usually just associate louder with better. So, it takes some getting used to, some exploring, but that's another thing you can do having with a send and return is, parallel compression, and you can add other effects in there. I definitely encourage you just really explore this stuff and really be creative with your sends and returns. And like I said, because they are essentially parallel processing, it's a great way to have something to be, kind of upfront in the mix while still adding that reverb and still having everything kind of punchy, but adding the reverb, but also, you know, sending everything. So if I go to my mids here, or if I go to the whole track, let's go ahead and take a listen. Where's like a, let's see, one of the main part of the track. So I've got a lot going, not too much, but you can hear that I've got different pads and stuff going into this, and that's adding reverb or adding kind of an atmosphere. This track's probably a little bit less than other tracks because it's kind of more of a, I don't have that much reverb going on because it's kind of like more deep house, piano house style track, more up in your face. But you get the point. You can send, you know, send elements to a return track like that and add some atmosphere. And yeah, and it's just a really great way to be able to add effects to your tracks and save on CPU. And that's basically how it works, okay? So that's pretty much it. You use these to send to the return tracks, and then those are routed to the master. And like I said, it's a parallel processing. And yeah, definitely I encourage you check out the tips that I showed you in today's video, and also explore your own, like, you know, the endless possibilities that you can do with sends and returns. Okay, guys, so I hope you'd enjoy that video. I hope it was helpful, and please like and subscribe. It really helps my channel grow. And like I said, check out the description below for free stuff or to book a Zoom call with me. And I look forward to talking to you soon. All right, see ya.